Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin. Alright, so in my video entitled 6 Reasons Why Steinhart and Squale Watches Are Shit, there were some interesting comments, and in particular this one comment that I wanted to make a video about. This comment was from William Kindred Winikoff. And if you haven't seen that video, there's a link in the description, check that out. His comment was directed to something I said in that video, and what I said was something along the lines of, fuck the Swatch Group for making ETA movements and allowing these bullshit companies to get off the ground. Now, the worst part of that quote is the cursing. When you use that kind of language in the heat of the moment and then later see it on YouTube, it's kind of embarrassing. So apologies about that. I'll try to do better in the future. But he wrote, in regards to that comment, where I was basically saying, you know, ETA is in bullshit watches and used by bullshit companies. He wrote, "You know who started the whole sub-homage phenomenon? With ETA inside. Rolex with Tudor." Okay, it's an interesting comment. Let's talk about it. Let's break it down. First of all, did Rolex use the ETA movement or a third-party movement by way of Tudor? Well, Rolex didn't do anything. I think you really have to separate those companies, okay? Now, they were both created by Hans Wilsdorf, all right? He created Rolex, and then he created another company. Now, just because somebody makes a company, does it mean that those companies are completely the same? I don't think it does, okay? And he made those two companies for a reason. He didn't want Tudor to affect Rolex's reputation. Okay, that's why. I think he would, if you were alive today, would not want you to confuse the two. I think he would want you to conceptualize those as two different companies. So I don't think it's fair to say, you know, Tudor equals Rolex. Okay, first of all. Now, the whole sub-homage phenomenon, was that Tudor's doing? Well, let's talk about the word homage. Okay, now to me, homage is synonymous with copy. Okay, copy sounds kind of negative. Homage sounds a little bit more palatable, but it's kind of like saying fake and faux, right? Fake pearls doesn't sound quite as good as faux pearls, but it means the same thing. So when you say to me homage, what I hear is copy, okay? As in copycat, kind of taking and stealing ideas. Now, can you copy your own product? I don't think you can, right? I mean, I'm wearing a Rolex sub. Now, this is a 14060, and it's certainly not the first incarnation of the sub. Now, would you consider this a homage? Is this a copy? I wouldn't, okay? I wouldn't. Are Tudors, you know, okay, now granted, the Rolex is, you know, the same brand, but would you consider, I guess, a Black Bay a copy or a homage? Now, I wouldn't, because, you know, again, it's using design aspects from a person who just happens to own two companies, right? Both companies, and I think it's his decision where those design aspects end up, and to say that, you know, Tudors are homages to Rolex. Well, Tudors basically are well, they're less expensive options, okay, and let's just talk about what Wilsdorf was thinking, okay, mid-tier. You know, market. Basically, he wanted a hand in the mid-tier market, and so through Tudor, he's giving you aspects of a sub, for instance, without what I think is the most important part, the movement. Okay, that's the heart and soul of the watch. He's giving you the body. You know, you can swim with it. It has the screw-down crown. You're getting some benefits from a Rolex, but it's not a Rolex, and it doesn't have the most important thing, the heart and soul of what a Rolex is. the movement, basically. And yeah, to call it a homage is like saying he was kind of copying himself, right? I mean, it just doesn't. It's a stretch to me. Okay. Um, Now, this Tudor does or did use ETA, and so let's talk about that now. Is it the same? Tudor uses ETA and Squale uses ETA. I mean, is it the same? Oh, it's all a wash. They both use ETA, and they're both equal in a sense. I don't think so. Okay, and let's talk about why. Well, Tudor could have made movements. Okay, Rolex had the technology, and Wilsdorf could have done it. Okay, it's he wasn't dependent on a third party movement. Okay, that was strategic. Okay, now why didn't he just make a movement for Tudor? Okay, well, I think if you're trying to fill that sort of mid tier gap that Rolex leaves open, well, if you wanted to make a movement, there's basically three choices. He could have used a Rolex movement, which would have been a bad business decision. I mean, if if a person wants a Rolex, they've got to get a Rolex, right? And you can get a mid tier Tudor, but it's not going to have what I think Wilsdorf would consider the most important aspect of a Rolex. Okay, and to just put a Rolex movement in, I mean, Rolex. What does Rolex become? Okay, so obviously he didn't do that. Could he have used old Rolex movements? I guess he could have, but again, then Rolex parts, end up inside Tudor's. The lines between the brands tend to blur even more. And it just doesn't really look good on Rolex for them to be, letting this technology trickle down, right? Or, I guess the third option, they could have just developed a movement for Tudor. And if they did that, I think people would have had two reactions. They would have said, well, I mean, it's made by, Rolex or Wilsdorf, and so it's probably just as good as a Rolex movement. Or he could have purposely made it worse, and I think that would have been a bad decision. I mean, I don't think he was that kind of guy to where he would say, yeah, let's make a movement, but let's just kind of cripple it in a way, make it kind of crappy, and then we'll put it in our watches. And then it's kind of like he could have the finger pointed at him for making bad movements. It's just it would have been a bad decision. The best thing he could have done is actually to use a third party movement. He gives you the body, right? You get the body, but as far as the movement, it's not his deal. Not his deal. And in a sense, that's it's wise because again, you're getting aspects of a Rolex, but you're not getting the most important aspect. So it's the fact that they could have made a movement, but I think just chose not to. Whereas Squale depends on ETA. I mean, Squale is dead in the water without ETA, or without some other third party to bail them out of the fact that they don't have the most essential element of a watch company, a movement. Okay, so I think in that sense, you can look at Tudor as using ETA as a tool to get a customer a less expensive version of a watch with sub elements, whereas I think you can look at Squale as just basically depending on depending on ETA for the sole of their watches. Okay, I'll leave you with this. Okay, I'll leave you with this. The best thing about a Squale is the worst thing about a Tudor. All right, think about that for a second. And really, the best thing about a Squale is the ETA movement, and that's the very worst thing about a Tudor. That's the complaint that's lobbied most at Tudor. It's got an ETA movement. So yeah, I mean it's an interesting question, and thank you, William, for that comment. But I think what he was basically trying to do, he was saying, ETA movement using watch companies are shit. Oh well, Tudor did that, and Tudor is Rolex, so Rolex is shit. It's a nice try, but yeah, hopefully I made a case against that. Thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time.